When good staff go bad, sometimes they really go bad. So this is the story of a seller of a business who had a staff member, and the staff member, I can only describe it as turning feral. He absolutely tried to kill the sale. He did everything in his power to ruin the sale, and eventually it cost $100,000 in cold hard cash to get the sale done and dusted. In my 20 years of business broking, I don't think I've ever seen a staff member this bad or this against a sale, if you like. So hang on to your seats. This is one tale that you probably won't believe. So this business was quite a large business. It was run under management, had a fully in place general manager. I think it had 45 odd staff. It was allied to the construction industry. Very successful business, been running a long time. Seller, again, wanted to retire. Her time, it was a lady running it, her time had come. She'd had enough. Time to relax, put your feet up and go on to other things. So she wanted to retire, called me in, and I had a look at the business, and this is what we did. So given the way the business was being run, we thought the best operation was to sell it as a managed business. I mean, it was a managed business. There was a general manager in place. The owner was really there just for governance and support and things like that. So it was a managed business. That's how we thought we'd promote it. That's how we thought we'd market it. But we didn't think of the reaction that the manager had. So the owner decided to tell the manager it was for sale, but not the other staff members. And she thought that was a good idea. Now, the manager had been with the business about 5 years, so not hugely long, but they were a long-time family friend prior to taking the job as manager. So she knew him as a family friend and had known him for many, many years, and approached him to manage her business for her so she could step back. And that's what they did. So she had great faith in this guy. As I said, they were friends, they were family friends, and she'd known him for a very long time. So she couldn't see what was wrong with telling him. But here's what he did. So the manager had a look in the websites, and he had a look at the for sale stuff, and he found a copy of the advert of this business for sale. Now, we weren't advertising the name of the business. We simply mentioned the industry and some relevant financial data in there. And of course, he knew the business, knew it intimately, and he figured that this was the business for sale. So he went to the owner and he said to the owner, "This is great. You're selling the business because it's a managed business. That means you can't sell the business without me. My hard work, my input, the fact that I'm here makes it a managed business, and that's what's giving value to the business. And so, how much are you going to pay me?" Of course, the owner's reaction was priceless. It was like, "What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean, how much are you going to pay me?" And so the manager says, "Well, because the business is fully managed, and that's me doing that, I'm adding value to the business, so I want a cut of the sale price." And she just looked at him and said, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." So he was adamant. He decided that his value to the business added value to the sale price, which is true in one respect, but not in another. And I'll explain that in a second. So he wanted a cut of the sale price. So what the general manager failed to consider was, yes, it was a managed business. Yes, that was partly because he was there. But any manager would have been fine. If we'd got rid of that guy, replaced him with another manager, another qualified general manager in the construction industry or allied to the construction industry, the business still would have had the same value. So yes, it was valued high because it had a manager in place, but not specifically him as the manager in place. And he didn't realize that. So his argument was simple. Business is fully managed, I'm the manager, I'm adding value, I want a cut of the business. What are you going to do about it? Well, the seller said, "No, I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not giving you a cut of the business. It's my investment, it's my business. I'll give you your normal bonus this year, and I might sweeten it a little bit, but you're not getting a cut of the sale price." Well, you can imagine how well that went down, obviously. But he held his tongue, and the owner thought she'd smoothed it over with him, thought that he was quite happy. So fast forwarded a little bit further down the process. I had found a buyer, perfect buyer for the business, well funded, knew the industry well, and he was looking for exactly what the business was. He wanted a managed business. Now, as part of his process, he wanted to interview the general manager just to make sure that the manager would stay on after transition and they'd get on well. So he just wanted to know this guy and understand his logic and things like that. So the owner went to the manager and said, "Are you okay to have an interview with the buyer?" He said, "Sure, fine, I'm happy. I understand this needs to happen, so I'll go to the interview. When is it and where is it?" So we set it up in a small cafe, nice and informal, sort of over lunch if you like, and I was there, the owner was there, and the buyer was there, and of course the general manager. Well, that's when the fun started. So we're sitting around the table waiting to have lunch. The general manager is of course late, so 20 minutes after the scheduled start of the meeting, the general manager rocks into the cafe and walks up to the table, and before we even introduce him to the buyer, and excuse my language, but he starts off with, "Well, if you think I'm going to work for you, think again." Now, needless to say, that set the tone for what then was a rather interesting meeting, and I wish I'd taped it because it was an interesting discussion. The general manager was probably as belligerent as he could possibly be, grunting, monosyllabic in his answers, kept on telling him it was a terrible business and the business was no good and he shouldn't buy it, he should go spend his money elsewhere, and this wasn't the type of business to buy. Now, about 15-20 minutes into this, the buyer, who was no dummy I might add, the buyer looks at the general manager and goes, "Well, if it's such a bad business, who are you? You're the one running it. You're the one that's marketing the business. You're doing all the work. If it's so bad, then you're obviously doing a pretty bad job, so I wouldn't want to employ you anyway. I'll get someone else in to run the business." Clearly, the general manager wasn't impressed with that. Of course, I looked at the owner looks at me, and the owner's just going, this wonderment expression on her face as the purchaser tears down the general manager. But it didn't end there. So given the nature of the business, it had some sensitive contracts with some rather large clients, so contracts that wouldn't be good to be publicised in the open market. So what did the general manager do after that meeting? Well, he told all the staff that the business was for sale and that he'd met the prospective purchaser, who was an idiot, didn't know what he was talking about, and would run the business into the ground. He then went on to tell clients, customers, subcontractors, all about the fact the business was for sale and all about the fact that the buyer was an idiot and they should get out while the going's good. So this was turning from something a little bit strange into a monumental disaster. So there was really not a lot that we could do about it, and we got together with the owner and we got together with the buyer and tried to figure out what we could do about it. Now, this is what we came up with. Now, we decided the best thing to do was to have the general manager have another meeting with the buyer without us, without me, without the seller, so just the two of them on their own, so the buyer could eyeball him, talk to him, and not feel that he had to say the right thing or worried about what he was saying. And of course, the general manager, well, he could say whatever he likes, but the buyer thought that was a good idea, so that's what they did. Now, despite his belligerent attitude, the general manager actually wasn't too bad at his job. Clearly, he'd been doing it for 5 years and he'd been running the business well. So the buyer recognised this, and in his meeting, he said to the general manager, "What do you want to stay with me? What do you want to be employed by me?" And he said, "Well, I want a raise, I want a better car, I want better perks." He went through just about a shopping list of, well, everything that you'd ever want, I guess. And the buyer said, "Well, that's not realistic." And he talked to him a little bit more. He pointed out that he was on a pretty good wage and pretty good perks as it was, and he agreed to increase him a little bit and buy him a new car and a few bits and pieces. And it all went well, and in the end, the buyer won the general manager over. And so they left the meeting pretty happy. Buyer came to us and said, "Yes, we're going to carry on with the sale." And we went through all the process. He went through his due diligence. He went through all the things that you expect them to do. Now, towards the end of the due diligence process, just before the contract was going to be unconditional, the general manager had another go at the owner. He came back at the owner, and this is what he wanted. So the general manager said, look, the sale's going to go through if I sign an employment agreement with the buyer. I'm happy to do that on the terms and conditions, and I'm happy to work for him. However, I want one more thing from you. And the owner said, what do you want? And he said, I want $100,000. And the owner goes, $100,000? Are you nuts? And he said, well, that's 9 months worth of salary for me, and I just think that's fair. And if you give me $100,000, you're getting close to $3 million for the business. If you give me $100,000, I'll stop making waves, and the transition will be simple, and you'll sell your business. Now, the owner thought about that and tried to figure out whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. Now, the term is golden handcuff. You're basically paying someone to stay with the business. I'm not sure whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm certainly not sure of the legalities of it. I'm not an employment consultant, so I kept well out of this. I only found out about this after the sale. I had no part in it during the sale, obviously. So the owner agreed to do that. They put a caveat on that, and they said, I will pay you the money 12 months after the business settles, not before. And so general manager said, that's fine, we'll do that, and away we go. Now, they had some non-disclosure agreements around that and all sorts of things, and that's why I'm being very careful about how I'm talking about it, because it is sensitive information. It is under a non-disclosure agreement, although I'm not party to that. And so the sale went through. Everybody was happy. The general manager got his 100 grand 12 months after the business was sold, much to the annoyance of the seller. So one way to avoid some of these issues is to get a comprehensive training period out of the seller of the business. Maybe you even want to contract them back for a period of time to help transition that business. How do you do that? Have a look at that video up there. That's how you do that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you over there. See you later.